Okay, so here we are with the last of our G.I. Joe classified retro card figures, and this is Recondo. While this is the last of the retro card figures, it is not the last of the G.I. Joe classified figures that I have. We've still got a few more of those. We've got Airborne, we've got the Techno Viper, we've got Quick Kick, and sometime in the near future, I'll be picking up Big Boa, but I didn't manage to get him on this batch of figures that I pre-ordered from Amazon. But Recondo, been one of my favorite characters in GI Joe since I was a kid. Really cool look, inspired by one of the original vintage GI Joe figures, the Soldiers of the World or Foreign Soldiers or whatever it was called. You know what I'm talking about. They did that whole line where they were concentrating on characters from various parts of the world, and they had the Australian jungle fighter. And this guy was designed to look like that Australian jungle fighter. He's not Australian himself, as we'll find out shortly. But in certain foreign versions of G.I. Joe, like Action Force and such, where they decided to give the team a little bit more of an international flavor, as might make sense, they decided to make Recondo into an Australian character in that. So there you go. There actually is an Australian G.I. Joe named Skymate that came out later on in the line, and of course, Australian. But yeah, let's go ahead and read his file card. That's what the file card looks like. And it says Recondo, Leclerc, Daniel M., role, Jungle Trooper, primary specialty, infantry, secondary specialty, intelligence, birthplace, Wheaton, Wisconsin. Recondo hates the cold. He loves hauling a rucksack through the bush and sweating through his camis. When he's in the jungle, he owns it. Anyone else is trespassing. So, yeah, let's go ahead and open them up. Now, this is not the first classified Recondo figure, and in fact, I have already opened on this very channel the Tiger Force version of Recondo. Kind of weird how this line has the Tiger Force versions before the standard versions a lot of the times, but, you know, whatever works. We still got a classic style Recondo, so I don't think anybody should complain. And see if we can get him out of here without damaging the packaging too much. I would like to try to keep the card intact as much as possible. And the stand fell out again, but this time it fell out while it was still in the box. And unlike Duke and Scarlet, who are newer figures, this is one that's a straight up repaint of the Tiger Force version of Recondo. And as such, they didn't give him as many accessories as we saw with Scarlet and Duke, but he still got a good amount of accessories, don't worry. So here is his figure stand. Every figure should come with a figure stand. And you can see that the classified has a distinct G.I. Joe star and stripe logo on it. So we'll set that aside for now. And let's get on to some of his other accessories. So he's got this large kukri knife. Acts as a machete, very cool. And like I said, these are all the same accessories that would have come with that original Tiger Force Recondo, but now they're in different colors. For example, the rifle is now olive drab green instead of black. And of course, the original Recondo figure back in the 80s came with an olive drab green rifle. And then we have his hat. And this hat seems a little more rubbery than the one that came with the Tiger Force version. Hopefully it'll stay on his head better. I won't have to use any double-sided foam tape to hold the hat to his head. And then we have this little automatic pistol. Like I said in the Tiger Force review, I kind of feel like this should have been more of a revolver instead. I think it would have fit more with the big game hunter feel of the figure, but whatever, that's what we got. And here's a backpack. And again, same as the backpack that would have come with that Tiger Force Recondo, but now it's in different colors. And lastly, Recondo himself. No rubber bands holding him in the package. None of that nonsense. He just came right out. And there's what our figure looks like. We can see that he is mostly dressed in khakis. The pants do have a camouflage pattern over them. Some people have speculated that this would have been a camouflage pattern that Recondo might have painted himself, rather than being any kind of stock military fatigues. And we got a little patch on the shoulder. That's pretty cool. Head sculpt's nice. Looks a little like Sam Elliott. Got a nice big mustache like Recondo ought to have. Again, harkening back to that sort of big game hunter aesthetic. One of the things that I always liked about G.I. Joe is that while it is a military-focused toy line, they still managed to try to get in pretty much any kind of archetype of anything a kid would have liked to have played. We got ninjas, we got astronauts, we got big game hunters, all kinds of cool stuff. Bikers, you name it. If a kid wants to play it, you got cops and robbers in there. You got everything. So let's go ahead and gear them up. And first of all, we got the kukri knife. Some might call it a machete, but to me that looks like a kukri knife. So, but you know, he'd use it as a machete, obviously, while he's cutting his way through the jungle. So that's what he looks like holding that. Pretty cool. And he does hold it pretty well. And then we got the rifle. And from what I understand, this is a fairly difficult rifle to fire just using iron sights like that. Usually like this type of rifle, I don't remember the name of it. Like I said, not a gun expert, but usually this type of rifle is fired with a scope. But Recondo doesn't need a scope. He's just that badass. And then we got the little automatic pistol, a little smaller than a lot of these are, but it is supposed to fit into the holster on his chest. And that's what it's like holding that. He holds that nicely. Let's go ahead and put that into its place. And you can get him into a two-handed grip with the rifle, such as that. I'm not going to bother to put it into his hand, actually, but you can stretch his hand around it and have him grip it. It does seem like the barrel's a little warped, but I'm sure I can straighten that out later. I got the backpack that fits on his back. Fits on there very nicely. Now, I guess this is before they decided to start putting those pegs onto the backpack so that you could hold the rifles on there with the trigger guard, so it doesn't have any pegs or anything like that. And it doesn't look much like the backpack the original Recondo came with because it doesn't have that framework over it. Again, that was something that looked kind of homemade. There was a lot about this figure that looked like he kind of kit bashed stuff together, you know, being out in the jungle, and that kind of makes sense. And last but not least, probably his most important accessory is his hat. And there we go. And again, it doesn't, like with the other one, it doesn't fit on there quite as snugly as I would like. It just falls right off. So what I would suggest you do is get a little bit of double-sided foam tape, and that'll help you stick it to his head properly. Do I have it facing? Yeah, I have it facing the right way. I had to make sure. We'll compare on the package just to make sure. Yep, the folded side goes over his on the left side, on his left. So that's what that's supposed to look like. So I'm going to take the hat off and set it aside because I don't want to risk dropping it. And the backpack too. Well, let's go ahead and then I dropped his kukri knife. For all the talk of not dropping stuff, I was going to put it into his holster here. There we go. Fits into the holster. I'm sorry, not the holster, the sheath on his leg quite nicely. Holster on his torso. Let's talk about his articulation. So Recondo can look up about that far. His articulation looking up is kind of hindered by that kind of mullet that he's got. He can look down about that far. Tilts his head kind of quizzically from side to side. Head turns all the way around. Like most G.I. Joe classified figures, the neck is a separate piece. So that gives us some more articulation at the base of the neck where it meets the collarbone. So there's that. He's got butterfly joints to the shoulders. They move back about that far. They're a little stiff. And they move forward about that far. Of course, the shoulders rotate all the way around. And they can move up about that far. So good range of motion on those. He does have a bicep swivel, so the bicep rotates all the way around. He does have double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get on the elbows. And then he has wrist articulation. The wrist rotates all the way around. Vertical hinge, so you can bend his wrist down that way, bend it up that way. And this wrist is also on a vertical hinge, it looks like. So, and that one moves all the way around as well. Legs kick up about that far. Dang, he's limber. Okay, He does have the standard on G.I. Joe classified figures drop-down joint at the hip. You can see one hip's a little lower than the other there, and that aids with the articulation on that. He does have double joint knees. Knees bend all the way back like that, so that's pretty cool. And then he's got a boot cut. Boot rotates all the way around. He's got a thigh cut. Thigh rotates all the way around, although I picked the wrong one because I went with the one with the kukri knife sheath. But you can see it goes all the way around. Ankle articulation. His foot can point down about that far. His foot can point up about that far. Good range of articulation of the ankles. And of course, it's on a rocker, so you can rotate it all the way around that way. So Recondo, I remember him being one of the more popular figures back in the day. He was really cool in the G.I. Joe comic book. They wrote him to be kind of a jerk in that, and I was like that. I was like, my characters are kind of jerks for whatever reason. But maybe it's because I identify with them. But yeah, with a really cool look that harkens back to vintage G.I. Joe of the 1960s, with a lot of good articulation on this figure, a lot of good character to him, great head sculpt, great accessories. The one problem with him is that, like I said, his hat doesn't stay on very well. And in fact, like I was saying, gee, I hope his hat stays on better than the Tiger Force version. No, it actually is worse. They actually made it worse. So I'm going to have to put some double-sided tape on there to make sure his hat stays on. But yeah, Recondo has always been one of my favorites. Here's what it looks like geared up all the way with everything. A lot of people associate Recondo with the character that what was his name in Predator that Jesse the Body Ventura played, Blaine. A lot of people associate him with that character because he wore a similar hat. So so yeah, a lot of people, when they talk about parallels between Dutch's team, Duke's team, and G.I. Joe, that's one of the parallels that gets made. Billy is Spirit, and Dutch is Duke, and Carl Weathers, that'd be Stalker, and et cetera, et cetera. So, but I don't feel like he was ever drawn to be like as big or as bulky as Jesse Ventura was, being like a large, muscular professional wrestler. So, but whatever works. The Pursuit of Cobra figure back in the early 2000s, that one definitely took a lot of influence from Predator. That whole wave took a lot of influence from Predator. So I definitely recommend picking this guy up, especially if you don't already have the Tiger Force version. Like I said when they opened that up, like if that was the only version of Recondo they made, I probably would have been happy with them. But I was sure they were going to make the version 1 at some point, and I'm glad they did, because even though I do like the Tiger Force design pretty well, and I wouldn't mind that being my standard Recondo in the line, I'm glad we have the actual classic look, so that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and I think I'll be back tomorrow. I think I will do Quick Kick. Let's do Quick Kick tomorrow. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like and subscribe, all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure. I'm going to go grab my double-sided tape so I can stick his hat to his head. We will talk to you next time. Bye.